So the main points of these releases, one, we've done a lot of enhancements to GPS. This is not only in regards to like the maps interface, but also the amount of detail you can get with the location tracking as well. We've done some updates to our RG1000, which is our ROIP gateway, added some enhancements to the dispatch console, introducing our SCADA and DMR interface, as well as our on-site implementation and training services. Now, one of the first points about 9.3 is that Motorola came out with a new topology. It is IP Site Connect, but rather than doing the connectivity between the sites using IP, you're able to use a DMR backbone. The configuration of SmartPTT for this new topology is the same, but what we've done here is we had to add some alarms and the support of this in our system monitoring. So the RDAC functionalities related to this topology would be available in our system monitoring. Another new feature that Motorola came out with is call priority. Now, call priority is only available in capacity max. It creates two call priorities, a high priority and a normal priority. Users with a high priority can interrupt users with a normal priority. However, the emergency calls and all calls will take priority over both the normal and the high priority. So this way, the dispatcher can be assigned a high priority and the field radios could be assigned a normal priority. This way, the dispatchers could do like a transmit interrupt. Now, we've done a lot of improvements or enhancements to our mapping services. First of all, you can now have multiple maps up at one time. So if you want to have a map that's going to show all of your security officers, and then another map that's maybe going to show your transportation drivers, you would be able to have different maps showing the different types of users on those maps. Additionally, the controls to do like a track animation or to create a geofence or a route have been integrated into the map area. So you have very convenient and a more logically, more logically available controls. Now, one of the features that I'm most excited about is the new GPS batching. So we have partnered with Talisman Wireless, who is located in Canada, and they have created firmware that can go inside of the GOB or generic option board of the Mototurbo radio. It could be inside of a portable radio or a mobile radio. And with that, there's also the option of an external box for the for the mobiles. It's called the Sprite box, which you may already be familiar with. Now, this is going to give you two things. The first thing is that typically with GPS and Mototurbo, let's say I report my location right this moment. So you know where I am now. Then 5 minutes later, my radio reports back to SmartPTT, okay, this is where I am now. Well, over the course of that 5 minutes, you might have driven 4 or 5 miles from where you are now. When you do a track animation replay, it may show that you drove right across a lake. I'm sure that didn't happen, but that's how it's going to be displayed in SmartPTT. Now, with the combination of Talisman and SmartPTT now, What the Talisman option board or sprite box does is it is constantly recording GPS coordinates every few seconds, I believe it is. Then at the pre-programmed update interval, let's say the 5 minutes, the Talisman option board compresses all that GPS location data into a single but slightly longer package, and it sends that data over the radio network to SmartPTT. So now, instead of seeing right now, here I am, and 5 minutes later, here I am again, you're going to see every point, every few seconds, where that radio was. So instead of seeing driving across a lake, you're now going to see the exact path that that radio took. So if you look at the top two images here, you're going to see with ordinary DMR how we, based upon how the radio was reporting, where the unit went. But with the GOB, you would actually see it took a different path than how we assume based on the limited data that MotoTurbo would normally provide. So now you're getting more of a breadcrumb trail, so to speak. Now, the other benefit that this is going to provide you is what happens if that radio goes outside the RF coverage area? You're not going to know where that radio went. So the other thing that the Talisman and SmartPTT is going to give you, let's say you have a school bus, and that school bus goes on a field trip outside of the RF coverage area. You're going to be, the Talisman board is going to continue to store those coordinates. Then when the bus comes back into the RF coverage range, it's going to look for inactive periods on the radio network, and it's going to start feeding that data back to SmartPTT. So now when you do a track animation later, you're going to be able to see where that radio was while they were outside of the RF coverage area. So this feature is only available in the 9.3.1 release. So if you need this feature, we can get you in the Plus product, we can get you the 9.3.1, but we have to go through Motorola to get you that. Now, this will be a standard feature in the Plus come 9.4, which is due out end of October, early November. Now, some other enhancements include T-Pro console support. Now, T-Pro is a company based out of Slovenia or Slovakia, and they make these integrated all-in-one dispatch consoles, or hardware, I should say. It can have a built-in handset. It can have a built-in desktop microphone, speakers, touchscreen, and some hotkeys. So if you have a customer that needs a form factor like this, we can work with you to get you pricing on the T-Pro. The next thing, remote analog control station support. I'm going to talk about this one a little bit later when I get to the hardware section about our ROIP gateway. HID devices support. Now, there are a lot of desktop microphones and other accessories that use HID codes to issue like a PTT to the dispatch console. So we have enhanced the capabilities of our HID support in SmartPTT. So now this is a much more seamless operation. We've created additional hotkeys that could be used in SmartPTT. So if you want to use the space bar to maybe key the security talk group and then another key to talk to another talk group, you can assign multiple hotkeys from your keyboard to be able to key different groups. Call record support. This is a very important one. In the voice log or the in the event log where you have your voice records, you double click using instant recall on an entry and it will start playing back that audio recording. But if you needed to send that audio recording to somebody by email, let's say, in the past, you had to go into the hard drive to find that file. Now with the 9.3.1, we have added the capability button on that screen just to export it like to your desktop or to be able to send it in an email form. So it's a great convenience factor in 9.3.1. Now, we're also adding some equipment functionality. First and foremost, we have the RG1000, which is a radio over IP gateway for use with motor turbo radio systems. Now, prior to the 2.2 release, we have always supported the ability to connect two radios to a single RG1000. We've also always been able to support motor turbo radios in both digital and analog modes, as well as supporting the various motor turbo topologies. We also support the high and mid-tier motor turbo mobile radios. Now, what's new with the 2.2 release, and this very first point is extremely important for pretty much all of our customers, and that is we can now support non-motor turbo radio systems. What this means is that if you want to be able to interoperate your motor turbo system to a P25 system, you can now connect an Apex or an XTL radio to this gateway. We offer pre-made cables for motor turbo radios. We offer pre-made cables, excuse me, for the Apex and XTL cables. Then we have a generic cable. So if you want to connect like a Vertex radio or some other type of radio to the RG1000 and interoperate with motor turbo, you can now do that. The other point here is that we've now added a Vox detect. So you may have a radio, maybe an HF radio, let's say, that does not provide a busy detect, like a core or TOR. Well, now we have the ability to do Vox detect. So rather than looking for that busy detect, we look for audio coming through on the RX audio line to be able to receive that audio. Now, we started showing AdaptTel at CPE and IWCE, and the response was incredible. The AdaptTel is a SCADA to DMR interface. It is going to allow you to send SCADA data over your DMR network. So if maybe you already have an existing SCADA network that maybe uses a fiber backhaul, but maybe you need to install a remote point and get SCADA data back to your network, you can use the AdaptTel in your DMR network to create an efficient and cost-effective link back to your SCADA network. I kind of went over these points here. One, you're going to have a reliable network connection for that SCADA data using the DMR. It's going to be more cost effective than trying to get like a fiber or microwave backhaul to a remote point. Now, the AdaptTel is very flexible, so you can use AdaptTel with or without SmartPTT. That's going to be more like the transparent mode, which I'll go over here in just a moment. And again, because we're able to have different modes of connection, it's going to help optimize the network load. The first operation mode is the transparent mode. In transparent mode, basically whatever we receive in, we will give out at the other end of the DMR network. So if we receive information from an RTU, AdaptTel is going to send that data or digitize that data, send it over the DMR network, and when it receives that digitized data, it's going to convert it back to the same format and send it to whatever service or like RTU device that you're trying to transmit it to. In the RTU mode, here we can actually act as the RTU itself. So we can take data directly from a remote I/O device using like a Modbus protocol, or just take straight digital I/Os. We can then send that data over the DMR network to another AdaptTel, and at that point we can convert it to different formats so that it could be used such as by SmartPTT, or it could be used by other third-party softwares like Wonderware. Now, in version 9.3, there is a limited capability to do an integration with SmartPTT and AdaptTel. Here in this case, we can take that data through the DMR network and display information in SmartPTT. However, in 9.3, we have to create your GUI, your graphical user interface. However, coming up in the 9.4 release, coming again October-November timeframe, you'll be able to create your own user interface for the SCADA data. So if you want to be able to have like a pressure gauge, you can create a pressure gauge look. So you'll be able to see what a safe zone is, or a safe operating zone, as well as more of a like a red line or like a danger zone in that gauge look. So again, that'll be coming in 9.4. The last thing I want to talk about are the software implementation services. So last year we started offering our on-site implementation services. We find that when customers use our software implementation services, as well as on-site training, that any issues with the system decrease by at least 80%. Additionally, the customer satisfaction is higher because when we're there, we do on-site training so that the customer is more familiarized and comfortable with the system before we leave. Now, when we do on-site implementation, first thing we do, we look at the topology. Are there any issues with the topology? We look at router configuration. We like to look at code plugs to make sure that when we get there that the code plugs are proper so that we don't waste time having any programming changes made. Again, equipment check, looking at the hardware, whether it's the radios, the routers, computers. We like to look at all of that to make sure there are no issues in the network. Connections with third-party equipment. Let's say we're going to be doing telephone interconnect. We look at the connectivity with the PBX to see if there's any issues there. And we work with their IT department or their PBX company to integrate the telephone interconnect. We'll look at the IP address plan, evaluate that and make any suggestions. When we come on site, we're then doing the SmartPTT configuration to the radio system. We're going to configure the console to the customer's needs. So we can create a custom console to give the dispatcher easy access to the information that they need most. We then do an acceptance testing. We go through all the functionalities that the customer is going to be using. ensuring for them that everything is working as expected. And then if any changes are needed, we make those changes while we're still on site. After all of this is done, we then do customer trainings. So that we usually do a system administrator training so that the person that's going to be managing the system after we leave is familiar with the settings as it relates to their system. We also, if a dealer representative is on site, we also train the dealer representative or technician so that they're more comfortable with the system when we leave. We also do a dispatcher training so that the dispatchers are comfortable with the system, and we like to sit with the dispatchers as they're using it. So as they're using it, any questions that come up, we're able to handle while we're still on site.